Before we begin the Q&A, without formality, just on behalf of the Estoril Festival, which occasionally does these semi-formal kind of moments, I just want to make a brief statement leading to an occasion. The opportunity for us to see all of your work together in this retrospective has allowed students and lovers of your work and new audiences in Portugal to see more clearly the great aesthetic and intellectual strengths which hold all of it together. Amongst them, the constantly challenging reality of human beings' position within the natural world and all its complexity, reminding us that we're not gods but physical beings, and that our attempts at divinity are assumed and the source of our diversity, and that our human nature, rather than a description of our incipient evil, as we generally use it, is our true mystery. A singularity of vision, which means that your work's been consistently controversial, but for the right reasons. As we eventually see when we look at the work, we look back at the work from some years ago, because you challenge conventional ideas about existence, and you take nothing for granted in this exploration, often painful, of desire and identity, and exposing our fear, which is not really of the other, but which is ourselves. So for these reasons, and for many more reasons, the Estoril Festival, represented by its founder and its director, Paolo Branco, wishes to make a special occasion of this moment.
I think this is chocolate.
So I think we're going to open it out to the audience in a while, but to begin with, I just want to ask you a question which struck me at the press conference. Looking around at independent film now, you're an artist who was working in looking at the literary world at the time when you began to make films, and you saw in cinema, in low-budget cinema, in the work of, I imagine, directors like Fuller and Aldrich, and then the people working for Roger Corman, and then other directors like Carpenter. You saw a way within more generic low-budget cinema of talking about lots of things which were important, rather than only something which was a copy of another film. Do you think, looking at cinema now, that you would make the same choice? Do you feel that you said something about cinema being over, and now we have to accept whatever comes next? Do you think now you choose to be that obscure novelist working in Canada doing something else? Or?
Well, things have changed, certainly. When I started, and I started making low-budget horror films, but those were the films I wanted to make. I mean, it wasn't, it only seems in retrospect that that was a wonderful idea because it was a good way for an inexperienced young director to get a start in film. And I think we've seen many filmmakers have started working in genre. I mean, Francis Coppola made a horror film to begin his career. Scorsese made a gangster film or two to begin his career. Those were all sort of low-budget Corman type exploitation movies, they call them. And I think you can see now still the horror genre, the science fiction horror genre is still very, very strong. You know, everybody says, I've heard this many times that people say, why now? You know, why now are horror films so popular? And because people want to think that the apocalypse is coming, and that's why horror films are being made, or because there is a war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that is what horror films are being made. But in fact, they're always being made, and every once in a while, one becomes very popular. And we've just seen that in North America with this small movie, which I haven't seen, called Paranormal Activity, which cost apparently about $15,000 and has made many millions of dollars. And the Blair Witch came along, and then in the old days it was Carpenter doing Halloween and so on. So I think it's the technology that's changing, but the way of watching movies and accessing movies is changing. But the making of movies is not changing. You still have to, the technology does not alter the fact that you have to be able to tell a story, work with actors, have a vision, literally, with your camera, and metaphorically, in terms of the themes and the sort of understanding of the human condition that you have as a filmmaker. Those things haven't changed, and those things will still be in short supply. And I don't want to repeat myself, but most people can now write a letter, they can write a page, they can write an email. There was a time in human history when only the most elite, the most well-educated and rich and aristocratic could read and write. Everyone else was illiterate. Now, many people can read and write, but it doesn't mean that they can write a novel. You know, it doesn't mean that they can write a screenplay. In other words, having access to the technology of writing doesn't immediately mean that you are an artist who uses words. So those things are still rare, and I don't think that will change. And when I talked about the cinema being dead, well, I mean the cinema as I knew it as a child is long and dead. You know, it's just completely different. The way that people, I mean, just the fact when you could actually own a movie and have it in your house, and it became like a book that you could take down. You take down your VHS tape, and you watch your favorite scenes, and you watch just the scene in the movie, or you watch it over and over again. When I was a kid, we used to go to the cinema every Saturday. It was like lemmings streaming to the sea. You know, it was a little river of children walking through the streets of Toronto. And believe me, with no parents, I mean, people were not afraid at that point of their children being kidnapped and all those other things. We all would just go to the cinema by ourselves every Saturday, and we'd watch a couple of movies, cartoons and documentary and so on and so on. But when you saw that movie, it was gone. If you didn't see it that week, you never saw it again. It was gone. Because the only place you could see it was that day in that cinema. That was it. When movies started to be shown on television, that revolutionized everything. That you could see a movie again that you'd seen 10 years ago, and now see it again on television. So all of that has changed, and it's just a continuous thing. I don't think there needs to be fear involved for those who love cinema. I don't think there's a fear that has to be expressed. I mean, I think this is actually quite exciting. I mean, I have an iPhone right here, and I'm ready to shoot my next feature with this iPhone. Seriously. And I will post it to YouTube the day I finish shooting.
So like a lot of, do you want to open it out?
Yeah.
Something there. We actually discussed discussed in a meeting film school today, we discussed exactly your point about whether technology was part of innovation or part of tools and our stories. Yes.
You have to talk.
Good evening. Well, thank you for being here. We are some students here from all over Europe. I'd like to ask you, what advice can you do to young filmmakers like us?
Well, I'd love to say, forget about film. Because there's not room for you and me, so there are many wonderful careers that have nothing to do with But I think beyond that, there is something that I never used to say, but I say now, is that if you want to be in film, you should really be there for the right reason. Everybody talks about celebrity culture, and there are many people who want to be rock stars, and it's not because they have music in their blood, it's because they like the idea of being a rock star. And there are many people who want to be a director, and it's not because they have anything to say through the medium of cinema, but it's just because they like the idea of being a director. And I think that if that is your motivation, then you're likely to end up very frustrated and disappointed. So it really, I think you have to examine your motives for wanting to be involved in film. And if they're the right, if you do have a real passion for it, and if you do have something of the experience of your life that you feel you can express through cinema, then that's different. But you have to know that has to be the real reason that you devote your energy and your life to cinema. And of course, you don't devote your whole life to cinema. I mean, it's wonderful when directors say that cinema is my life. It's not my life. It's a part of my life, but it's not. If cinema disappeared, I'd still be alive, and I would look at those other careers that I'm encouraging you to look at.
Somebody else then? Is there a microphone or something?
Good evening, Mr. Cronenberg. I have two questions. One, what is it that you want to say through your films? And two, is it true that you're considering a sequel to History Promises? Thank you.
The first one, what do you want to say to the film? So that covers the whole.
Yes. Actually, it doesn't. I just say nothing, really. Well, in a way, that's true. I mean, I'm not. It's not. There's a very, very famous quotation when was it Sam Warner? He said, "If I want to send a message, I'll use Western Union." Western Union was a telegram. There's some truth in that, because it's not a message, that I have to deliver. When I'm making a movie, I use film to explore my version of the human condition. So when I'm making a movie, I don't know everything. Alfred Hitchcock used to like to say that his movies were like little machines, and they would manipulate the audience, and he could make you cry and laugh at exactly the moment you wanted it, and he could make you afraid. To me, it's not. My approach is completely different. I don't know what I'm exactly saying. It's more an exploration of things. I find a narrative. I find characters who intrigue me, who present me with little dilemmas and puzzles, and I try to solve those puzzles and untie the little knots. And that way it reflects to me what my own experience of life is. And all of my films are very personal, really. And that in itself seems unusual, because I have done movies which I've written myself, original screenplays, but I've also adapted novels and a play. But they all are personal. They all become, you mix your blood with them, and with some other person, let's say, who's written